Yeah, that was fantastically detailed, and I'm just wondering, out of everybody watching, sort of, to what extent people are very au fait with Veloviewer. Could they follow along what you were saying there? Or I'm just concerned that maybe some people might be completely new to it, and you've just completely blown their minds. I'm just wondering, guys, if you use the text box thing below, if you type a 1 if you're already quite au fait with Veloviewer, and give us a 2 if you're new to it, and just see if we can get a measure of that. So okay, lots of 1s coming through, but there's quite a few 2s in there as well. One of the things we said we would try to address on the advert, if you like, for the webinar, was things like quick wins for improving your score, and looking at sort of how to maybe select some of the segments where you stand the best chance of improving your scores. So maybe we can look at a few of those things.
Yeah, for sure. So for the people who typed in 2 before, what is the score? So on the summary page, the biggest numbers in here is the Veloviewer score, and you have a little chart here that marks your progress of your score. So if it's going up, that's good. If it's flatlining like I am, then it's maybe not so good. And if it's going down, yeah, that's not good. But the idea behind the score is to have some way of gauging yourself against your peers, really. This is like, it could be just in your club or in your local area, or internationally. I think the day I came up with building the score, I was looking at the Cycling Weekly Trimto score or something like that. I can't remember what the actual term is for it, but they've got a score, and it's based on your last few rides and how hard you were trying. And with everything with Veloviewer, I want to try and make it work for people who aren't out and out racers. I want it to work for people who basically are like me, who have an office job, have got kids. I get out on a Tuesday evening with the club, usually quite slow, go to the pub afterwards, and then a Saturday ride or Saturday morning ride where I'll be going out and hopefully hurting myself on the hills. But it's not like I'm racing all the time or training solidly. It's only a couple of rides a week, and then the rest of the time is reminiscing about the good old days before I was married and had kids, and when I could go out all the time.
Absolutely. So, I think it was called the Ritmo score, Ben, just to throw that in there.
Yeah. That's the one. Yeah, so I wanted something which was more, well, I was good last year. I still want to have some recognition for the fact that I was good last year, and like that kind of thing. So I thought the best way to do it was basing it off of your segment places. But obviously, if you're in second place on a segment, but there's only 4 people who have ridden that segment, that's potentially not very good. But if you're 100th place, but 10,000 people have ridden it, then that's actually a really good score, a really good placing. So on every single segment, maybe if I just go into the segments list. So every single segment here, there is the position score column here. So the normal positions are, so that's first, so they're basically KOMs there. But if we go down the list here, so not everyone is vying for top positions. So I'm wanting to make the site as useful for people like my dad, and my dad uses the site as well, and he wants to be inspired by the scores as well, and he isn't riding there and is getting the KOMs, but he can still try and improve his score. So what it is so 185 people have ridden this particular segment here, and I'm in 8th place. So it's like your percentile. It's not exactly a percentile, but it's if you just treat it like a percentile position, then that's what this score is. But what I didn't want it to be, that if you're first, so if you are KOM, then I wanted it to the score to be less if you're KOM and there's only been 2 people have done the segment. That's not really worth very much. But if loads of people have done the segment, then it is worth it. So if I so these ones at the top here, ones with the highest position score, are the ones that have got the highest total here. Whereas if we go down to my last KOMs here, so hey, total of 1. So there we go. So I'm first place, but I'm the only person to have done it. So that total column is how many riders have done it. So my score for that is only 50. So basically, I might be first, but I'm also last. So it's 50%. You know, it's half a score, half a point. So the way that the summary, the overall score works is it takes so here it's going off 100 of my potential scoring segments. So because Strava are a bit protective around being sued with downhill segments and that kind of thing, I don't take into consideration downhill segments for this, following the same rules that Strava apply for setting goals and that kind of thing. So it's based on segments need to be greater than minus 0.25% gradient. So it's all right if they're slightly downhill, but basically they have to be flat or uphill to count. It has a maximum of 100 segments that will be used. But if you're building up your segment, if you're quite new to Strava, then it will use your top 25% of segments. So it'll never, if you've only ridden 100 segments, it won't be those 100. It would be 25% of those 100, so it'll be 25 of those segments. Because I'm kind of taking it that you haven't gone full gas on every single segment, but there's a chance you may have gone harder on the first ones. When I was building this, there weren't anywhere near as many segments as there are now, so there just weren't many segments around then, whereas now there are so many that I can't imagine as many people who don't have enough segments for it to be maxing out at 100 for their score. So in terms of picking what and just quickly within here as well, so within the summary page, you can filter all this data by your activity type. So that's not good. Let me just refresh that. As I was saying before, it's still beta, obviously. Okay, so if I go to ride, it still shows me that, because basically all I do is ride, because I've only done 4 runs, but I still have a Veloviewer score for running on its own. So if you do lots of different activity types, then as you click on those, you'll have a score for each of those. I only store the values for the all and over all the years, but you can then go and look at scores over different years. That doesn't actually make as much sense as you might think it does when you click them, because basically this is only going on your PRs rather than on all your efforts. So if you had one really good year in 2014, like I did, then chances are that would have taken a lot of my faster times from the earlier years. So I might well have had a good year in 2012, but it won't be as good, because all my PRs that you use for the scores are actually on 2014, which will bring down a score on the other years. So actually, if you're looking at the score, it's probably best to have it on all, but then you can, but it does make sense to view your running score. And yes, that's probably, that is my running score, not very good. So in terms of how you would, if you want to improve your score, lots of people ask about this. Is one of the most common questions I get, and it does tend to be, people want to see the list of their scoring segments so they can try and improve them. But actually the best thing to do is try and improve the segments which aren't included in your score already, because chances are the ones which are on your score, you've had a good try at already. So it's probably best to try and find something you've not tried yet, because maybe you didn't know they were there, and then try and improve your placing on those, and that will up your score on those. So they're definitely the low fruit to pick. So the way you would go about that is in the config here, there's a scoring. You'll notice that there's lots of other things in here, but I'll come back to that later on. So if you pick the scoring tab, you'll notice that what that's done is it's ordered it by the position score rather than the position. And it's also set the gradient to be from minus 0.25 upwards. So this is basically the same algorithm that's used to calculate your score. And currently it's still 2,100 segments, which I've done, which are of that in that gradient range. So I know it's only the first 100 of these which are being used for my score. So if I change that to be showing me 100, those are my scoring 100 segments that are being used. So the thing that's interesting here is that the lowest scoring one is 99.84. So if what we do is add in the position score filter, and then say, okay, let the maximum of that be 99.83. So this it's now got rid of all the ones which are being used on my score. All the ones in this list now are ones which aren't currently used. So if I can improve, if there's anything here which I can improve, then that would then go up and be used in my score. So the best way to find the ones that you can most improve is by clicking on the total column. So rather than the position score itself, because that's basically how hard you've tried relative to everyone else on there. So what you want to do is look at which ones have the best potential for scoring. And that is based on, because it's a percentile position, it goes on how many people have actually completed the segment. So you can see here, all these top ones are Alpe d'Huez, because I've been up there a few times. But obviously that's not very useful for me being here in Sheffield. That's a little bit of a way to go to try and improve my score. And I also know that I tried really damn hard on there, and I'm not going to be able to go faster ever again, probably. So so the best thing to do now is to say, okay, I'm going to go for the distance away. So this is using your position. So you can tell at the top here that it's using the current position, and there's a column on the grid which is your current position and the distance away. So all I care about are the ones which are local to me. So I'm going to filter that down to just the ones that are really quite close. And now the other thing that's worth filtering out are the ones which are really short, because quite often, like this one, which is only 200 meters long, they're just far too hard. So I know I'm 3 seconds behind the leader, but to try and improve on that is you just need the GPS device to record your data points in the right place rather than going any faster. So it's best just to filter out those ones as well. So what I'll also do is add distance in here and just say from 1 kilometer up. So now, oh no, I did the wrong one there, didn't I? So get rid of that one, and it should be from here. Okay, so now it's 1 kilometer away, distance and upwards, and they're local ones, and the scoring ones, and they're ones which I've not had yet, and they're ordered by the total. So here I can easily look at this and go, okay, these are the ones I need to target. So whole moss, most of these are whole moss. So it looks like if I went out to whole moss and had a really good try, which I know I've not done, because it always feels a bit too far from home to be having a really good try. But that is definitely the place I need to go to try and up my score. And potentially because lots of these are all on the same hill, that would do quite well. So that's for me, that would be the way I would go, and if I wanted to try and improve my score, is to use the filters in that way, and then try and tick the ones which you think you can actually. You obviously need to know what the climbs are to a certain extent to see which you think you can still improve, but that's definitely the best way to go about doing it.
Absolutely, that's fantastic, Ben. One other thing I would add to that, just from my personal experience of using it, is that I like to focus on the VAM scores, looking at the segments where I've done well, relative to my own performance, obviously, and work out what kind of VAM figure you're capable of, and then maybe look at similar hills, similar gradients, similar lengths, where perhaps the VAM score was a lot lower. And it's obviously that, the case that when you were out that day, you were just taking it easy or whatever. And those would obviously be ones to target, to go back and have a more serious effort at.
So there you go. I've just ordered by that. So now you can see the leader's VAM and my own VAM there. So obviously I haven't tried on those segments. So there's certainly ones which can try harder on. Monsel full. I think that's one that must carry on for a lot further. But yeah, so there's plenty of ways to find extra ones that way as well.